Welcome to SuperCoach, and today we're going to take a look at a man that many have predicted will be the next superstar and one of the premium midfielders in the competition for the next decade, and that's Heaney. And I guess as far as we're concerned, we really want to know whether he's going to break himself into the elite category of our forward lines. And I suppose it's pretty relevant. I mean, he does look like a fantastic player already, and there is opportunity there in the Sydney Swans midfield. So we will discuss the pros and cons and everything you need to know about Heaney before I cast a verdict. And of course, if you haven't caught any of these, I'll take a look at some of the more popular players, dissect their stats, give my thoughts on the good and the bad, and then hand out my thoughts exactly on what you should be doing with their selection in 2017. Now, at the moment, Heaney is in 28% of sides, so as to be expected, he is quite popular. 433k in the forward line. Many people have him sitting in the F4 position, maybe even F3, so he is looking like a very popular selection. And the good is quite clear. He has long been touted as a superstar ever since he was taken at pick 17, I think it was, but there was plenty of controversy about that, given he was probably in the top couple of picks in that draft. But Sydney snapped him up with the handy little rule that was back in place before the point system was brought in, and they got a bargain in the back end of round one there. And he's a nice mark. He's a star on the rise, wins his own ball, capable of going forward, which we've seen him largely do his craft at the moment. His first few years have seen him on a half-forward flank, but we did get a bit of a glance and an insight as to what he could be as a midfielder through the finals. Now, in the final series, he scored, of course, in that loss against the Giants, he only scored the 55 points, and he went 118, 120, and 84. And he really did get some exposure in the midfield and just looked fantastic. I mean, they're great numbers for finals. And that 118 against the Cats I did see, and he was outstanding. He covers the ground beautifully. He's got such strong hands, and he's so strong in the contest as well. And he's just a really smart footballer. I think that's exactly what he is a footballer. He's smart. He's got that time and space in the contest. He is hard and on the inside, and a bit like Fife, has that other dimension where he can take an overhead mark. Average one contested mark per game last year. Last year only scored the 79.6 per game on average, but you know, we can't really take too much into that because that strong Sydney midfield just pushed him aside so often. Now, of course, he is pretty nicely priced given that, and I think a lot of people will be having a look at him very closely. And the bad, I suppose, is not whether you think he's going to have a good year, because I think you'd be pretty silly to suggest that he's not going to have a great season. I think it's just how good we feel he can go, whether he really will lock himself into the regular rotation through the midfield, and whether that 79 odd points goes to 90 or 95, or does it go to 100. I think that'll really be the question we want to answer. So I guess most of the concern about Heaney is whether at 433k you're picking him to be in the side for the whole season. And I suppose he hasn't played that many games in his career so far. In fact, it's only the 38. He's 21. He's pretty young. So I suppose the question could be raised that he still has a bit of developing and inconsistency in his game. And whether we can expect premium numbers is another question. You know, we do have a lot of good options in our forward line. A lot of people are starting to warm to your Rewalts, your Lynches, your Gunstons, your Jared Roughheads. You know, maybe taking a risk on an unproven Heaney is going to be a little bit too much to ask. That might be a line of thought. I know there are some who have their concerns about Heaney. A lot of people do just lock him in and don't even think about it. It is definitely worth considering both sides of the coin. We've got to take a look at this man is young. He hasn't been exposed to midfield time game and week after week, so it's something we've got to consider. But I do think, largely looking at it from a broad spectrum, that he does look like just a man who will mould to that extremely well and is ready to play midfield. So that brings me to my verdict, and it is a definite yes for me. He is currently in my side. hasn't been out of my side since day dot, and I'm pretty confident in selecting him. Maybe I've been a little biased by watching him run around and destroy the Cats on the MCG, but he did just look fantastic. He looked like a man who'd done his apprenticeship on the half-forward flank, and with the likes of McVeigh taking a backward step, and Kieran Jack and Tommy Mitchell as lefty side, of course. So I think many people are expecting him to get big midfield minutes. That was evident against North Melbourne in the week 1 of JLT Community Series. 23 touches, 9 tackles as he and Callum Mills ran riot. Now, of course, he didn't play against the Giants, but I think we can definitely expect to see him in the midfield a lot. Don't expect him to be racking up enormous numbers in comparison to, say, the other fantastic mids, because Kennedy, Parker and Hanbury really took a backward step and a back seat in that first week of the JLT Community Series. So expect Heaney to get midfield time, but don't expect him to be overdoing any of those guys. I mean, they're still the trio that the Swans trust and will go with every time. But I definitely think that Heaney could be a really exciting prospect, and I feel that he is just ready to explode. He looks like a man who, as I said, has done his apprenticeship and is just waiting and biding his time to get a crack at that midfield. And gee, when he does, I reckon he'll be something special. There's just some players that you watch. Now, you can dissect the numbers all you like, and I do enjoy doing that. But sometimes you just got to watch a player and you just go, this guy's got some real talent. He's got something else that others don't have at that age. He's got the poise, he's got the class, and he's shown that he's not afraid of the big moments. He can kick goals. His 9 tackles against North Melbourne showed that, he can be a tackler as well. I think he ticks every box. Inside ball, overhead ability, kicking goals, inside mid with your tackles, etc. Does he have the engine? I would have thought he would have built it up by now. Only 81.8% game time last year. That could definitely bump up to probably 85, 86, especially with a bit more midfield and a more hardened core in that rotation of mids. And I think that could also help him a little bit. But I just definitely feel that him rotating through the midfield, and even when he is forward, he's kicked 5 in a game before, he's shown he's very capable. So I definitely think Heaney is a great selection. I think it's something we should always look to snap up when a superstar of the game is building towards that superstardom. We saw it with Gary Ablett and other players that just sometimes you'll see them get that forward eligibility just before they break out to your genuine mids. Now, if we can identify that, then we have one fantastic season where we get a near premium mid in our forward line, and I feel that's what we'll get with Heaney. I really do feel that he could push the 3 figures for sure. If I was predicting, I'd probably expect probably 97, 98. But I think he's capable of going above that, and I think we'd probably accept 95. I think that's probably a pass mark in the forward line this year. Aside from Dalhouse and McRae, and maybe Caddy might be pushing that mark too, with a fair bit of confidence being put in him, there aren't a lot of absolute standouts. So if you picked Heaney at 433 and he pushed up to 95, I feel you'd be happy, and I definitely think he will. So we'll watch him out next week. I'm sure he'll be named and we'll see how he goes. But barring any injury or some crazy thing where he does just play permanent forward, then I think he will be in many sides, and rightly so. So that pretty much wraps him up. I understand there might be an element of risk and people are concerned that he is young and hasn't played many games, but I feel this man, for the next decade, or at least 8 or 9 years, will be one of the most watchable and fantastic players in our game. So I feel we should latch onto him before he really explodes. Now, next up, I'll take a bit of a look at the, well, not a young man, he's an old man, and a very tall man, and a man who would have entered many sides over the back of his performance on the weekend. Injury prone, cheap, proven player, really going to be tough to make a final call on him. Get him right, you'll be extremely pleased. Get him wrong, he could leave you in all sorts. So I'll take a look at him next up, probably early in the week. But until then, if you haven't subscribed already and enjoy what I'm doing, by all means, hit the subscribe button. Give the video a like, of course. Comment as always. Always good to see a few comments from everyone involved and your thoughts on the player, and I'll get around to a few of those comments soon. Coming up to a few holidays, which is nice as well. So I'll also be doing a little bit of video stuff too. You'll actually get to see Shorty's scone on the TV, or the screen I should say. Bit of Camtasia, I believe the program is, so I'll get stuck in a bit of that, maybe walk through SuperCoach Draft and maybe a couple other things, and yeah, try something else might be of interest other than your basic podcasts that I do regularly. So stay tuned for that, guys. Subscribe as always, get along to the Facebook page as always, and I'll catch you soon.